you were ambassador of India in the US when Mr. Modi came into office. You did Howdy Modi. You were foreign secretary during this very crucial period when Indian foreign policy morphed in some ways, one would say. From that Nehruvian era, we've moved to a different kind. And you were at the cusp. You've seen it up close and front. How would you say, because when you began service, how would you say that what it was then and what it is now? How would you see it?
I began service some 40 years ago, but even take 10 or 15 years ago, India was seen very differently as it is seen today. When I was in the United States, I had no problems of access to any level. Senators, governors, business leaders, even the White House, you would get access wherever you needed and whenever you needed. And that's because people had a genuine interest in India and the success of India. And Prime Minister Modi's own efforts to boost the relationship with the United States was very well known. So whether it was Democrats or Republicans, it was bipartisan support for a strong relationship with India. And I think it was a matter of great pride and satisfaction to me as ambassador of India to the world's richest nation and most, in some senses, the most powerful nation, that we were regarded so well across the board. We had a very successful Indian diaspora in the United States. The Prime Minister, I think one of the aspects that is important is that he not only had good relations with every president, right from President Obama to President Trump and now President Biden, successfully has maintained very strong relations across the board with the US. He's also reached out to the Indian community across the world in general, but since we're talking about the US in particular, in a way that no Prime Minister has ever done. I mean, Howdy Modi is a one-off event, and I think it'll be rare to see something like that replicated ever again. 50,000 US nationals of Indian origin gathered in a part of the United States with the US President and the Indian Prime Minister addressing them, walking hand in hand to take a round across that stadium. An incredible moment of friendship and amity, but also a demonstration of the closeness of ties and the strength of the Indian diaspora.
But Trump was an unknown factor for the Indian foreign policy establishment. Indian diplomats didn't know anything about him. His team that came in, was it a challenge initially to open talks with an unknown person completely?
So Trump didn't belong to what you call the Washington Beltway politics. He was an outsider. He didn't believe in doing things the way it was normally done. And so his decision-making methods were different from normal presidencies. So we had to find out what made him tick, what are the factors what are the inputs that went into his decision-making, how could you factor that in? And I think that took a bit of time and effort, but ultimately I think we did find that there was a way to reach out. Of course, there is no better way to reach out than at the top levels, but you need to reach out also at different levels of the administration, and I think that is something that we managed to find a way to do. It took some effort, and that is a different story by itself. But I think ultimately,
tell us about that story. What were the challenges at that time?
Well, I mean, look, he didn't believe in working through his let's say White House team. He didn't believe in working through his cabinet, his council of ministers. You had to work through channels which he relied on.
Okay.
And for him, it was only family. It was the family that actually mattered, and it was the family he listened to. If you had the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of Defense tell him something, he may or may not have listened. I mean, half the time he thought he knew it better than the others. But of course, if you were to access a family member and say, look, this is very important for the relationship, please, mention this to the president before we have this important meeting, for example. That I thought really made the difference.
I think we saw that also when Ivanka Trump came out to India. I mean, the red carpet that was laid out for her, and everybody was like, okay, it's never happened before that a family member got so much importance.
But Ivanka was an integral part of his administration's team. Ivanka and Jared Kushner, her husband, were very major players which were inside the White House team that worked on policy initiatives.